All right, we've got the Samsung Neo QLED, and on the other corner, we've got the LG QED. Two names that sound almost identical, but which one actually gives you the better picture for your money? If you're in the market for a new TV, this showdown might save you from making a very expensive mistake. In this video, we're going to break down what the Neo QLED and the QED actually are, where each technology shines, where it falls short, and who should pick which. By the end, you'll have a clear idea of which one fits your room, content style, and the budget. For the most updated prices and deals, check the links in the description below. To start, what do the names actually mean? Samsung Neo QLED is Samsung's high-end line of LED or LCD TVs using mini LED backlighting plus quantum dot layers. Neo refused to Samsung refining the LED backlights, adding more LEDs, offering finer control, and increasing the number of dimming zones. This results in stronger brightness, better contrast, and improved performance in HDR content compared to standard QLED models. LG QNE is somewhat different. The name stands for Quantum Dot Nano-L Emitting Diode. But in practice, LGQ, and especially in the mini LED Q and models, uses mini LED backlights paired with both quantum dots and LG's nano cell layer to boost color accuracy and reduce light leakage. In some lower-end Q and models, however, standard LED or edge LED backlights are still used, which means not all Q and S perform at the same level. So, both Neo QLED and QED are still LED LCD TVs, not self-emissive technologies like OLED. The real differences come down to how the backlighting is designed, how many dimming zones are implemented, how precise the control of the zones is, and what type of LCD panel sits in front of the backlight. Usually VA panels for Samsung and IPS variants for LG. These technical distinctions directly affect contrast, black levels, and viewing angles, making the choice between the two more about your viewing environment and priorities than just the marketing names. One big factor is the panel type, which impacts how the picture looks from different angles and how good blacks and contrast are. Samsung Neo QLED models often use VA-type panels. VA panels tend to deliver stronger native contrast, darker blacks in dark scenes because the liquid crystals block more light when off. This is useful in dim or dark rooms. LGQD tends to use IPS or IPS variant panels for many models. IPS gives you better viewing angles, less color washout when you're off to the side. If your seating is wide or people sit to the side, IPS adds IPS variants in Q and have an advantage there. Recent Q and models may also include some VA panels, depending on price and model, bridging the gap a bit. What this means? If you're often off-axis, you're watching from the side, Q and might give more consistent color and brightness. If you mainly watch from the center, especially in darker ambient light, Neo QLED will often produce deeper blacks and better contrast. Brightness and contrast are key, especially for HDR content, daylight viewing, or scenes with both very bright and very dark areas. Neo QLED tends to push higher peak brightness in many tested units. This means highlights like sun's reflection, bright sky, or snow pop more. Also, Samsung usually implements strong local dimming, often full array local dimming with many zones, so dark areas can stay dark while bright parts shine. This improves black uniformity, reducing blooming light leaking into dark areas. In tests comparing Neo QLED versus LG QE90, Samsung had better black uniformity and contrast. LG QE mini LED models have made big strides. They now offer many dimming zones, good local dimming, and high peak brightness in many premium models. These help reduce artifacts. However, in many comparisons, the Neo QLEDs still slightly outperform QED in peak brightness and handling reflections from ambient light. If your room gets a lot of natural light, or you often watch sports or bright content during daytime, brightness plus reflection handling becomes very important. Neo QLED generally has an edge here. Color accuracy, HDR performance, and how well a TV handles HDR content, tone mapping, color volume, etc. matter if you want vivid, realistic images. Quantum dots give both Neo QLED and Q and wide color gamuts. That means that they both can display more saturated, more correct colors, particularly in bright highlights. LG uses QC plus nano cell to filter out impure wavelengths, which helps in preserving pure RGB colors. This reduces color bleed and improves fidelity, especially in models that include premium panels and calibration. Neo QLED has strong upscaling processor tech and often better handling of HDR metadata. Samsung's higher-end Neo QLEDs usually do well on tone mapping and keeping detail in both shadows and highlights. One thing to note, in very dark HDR scenes, especially in cheaper Q and D models, sometimes the blacks aren't as deep because of panel type or how many dimming zones or how uniform the LED backlight is. Neo QLED often keeps dark scenes more convincing, but in bright HDR scenes, 10% windows, lighter content, Q and shine, especially in color fidelity. It depends on the specific model. Gaming is a big use case now. Both Neo QLED and modern QED TVs include features geared toward gamers, but there are some consistent differences. Features to watch: the refresh rate, 120 Hz, sometimes 144 Hz or more. The input lag, that's how quickly the TV responds to controller input. Variable refresh rate, the BRR, and the All-M or the auto low latency mode. Samsung's Neo QLED models often have slightly better motion interpolation, response time, and lower input lag in many comparisons. For example, in rings tests, the Samsung QN9A beats LG QD90 in terms of black uniformity, reflection handling, and HDR brightness in game mode. LG Q and is catching up. Many QN models support 120 Hz, good response, and better motion smoothing. But in bright room glare and peak brightness under game mode, Neo QLED tends to stay ahead. If you play fast action games or competitive shooters, those differences matter. Let's talk about your room lighting and how you actually watch TV, because specs matter, but real life matters more. If your room is very bright, lots of windows, daylight streaming in, you'll want high peak brightness for highlights to shine and to combat glare. Good anti-reflection screen or coatings, good reflection handling, and more robust local dimming to avoid washed-out blacks. Neo QLED tends to perform better in that kind of an environment. If you watch mostly in dark rooms, evenings, home cinema, movie nights, then deeper blacks, fewer blooming effects, high contrast, strong local dimming, many zones, panel types that block light. Well, Neo QLED often has an advantage here. QNE models with VA panels can get close. If you sit off to the side with a wide couch or family layout, viewing angles matter a lot. Q and with IPS or IPS variant panels tend to keep color and contrast more consistent off-angle. If you sit mostly in front, Neo QLED's stronger contrast may be more noticeable. If gaming is a priority, look for 120 Hz or more. VRR, low input lag, and features optimized for gaming. Neo QLED seems to have a slight edge in brightness in game mode, and how quickly it recovers from fast motion. Price is always a big factor. Neo QLED tends to cost more in many regions, especially for its top-tier models. Premium Neo QLEDs pull ahead in brightness, contrast, and reflection handling, but you pay for those gains. QN often gives good value, especially in mid-range. You might not get the brightest or deepest blacks, but you get strong color fidelity, decent brightness, and wide viewing angles, all for less. For many viewers, those lesser areas are acceptable trade-offs. Also, both brands have multiple lines. You might compare a high-end Neo QLED versus a mid-QNA. Always check number of dimming zones, whether panel is VA or IPS or variant, HDR brightness, especially 10% window or peak luminance, reflections, performance, gaming features if needed. Don't assume one brand always beats the other. The model series matters a lot. So now, which should you go with? If you want a TV that handles bright rooms, lots of sunlight, daytime TV, and large windows, well, the Neo QLED is probably the safer bet. Its higher peak brightness and better reflection handling means images stay punchy even when the light's on. If you're building a home cinema setup you watch in darker conditions, movies, and cinematic content, Neo QLED also often gives deeper blacks and better contrast. If you care about sitting off angle, or you have a wide sofa or many viewers off center, LG Q and D with its IPS variants give more consistent image quality when you aren't dead center. If budget is important, wanting strong color and picture without paying top Neo LED premium, a solid mid-range Q and model can be excellent value. Gamers who want high refresh rate, VRR, quick response, go with whichever model, and each brand has those features. But Neo QLED units often have slight advantages in game mode under bright conditions. If you're shopping now, take note of your room lighting. How many viewers are off angle and whether you want gaming or cinema performance. That'll help you choose the model that gives the best value for your setup. Don't forget, prices and specs can vary by model and size. So, check the latest reviews and deals. The links in the description below have the current pricing, model comparisons, and deals in your region. For the latest pricing, variants, and deals, watch my YouTube channel. If this video helped, hit like, subscribe, and leave a comment about what TV you're eyeing, Neo QLED, the QNED, or something else. And until next time, happy viewing.